All right, let's get into Friday feedback, also known as the Friday feed bag. Back on Friday this week, last week on Wednesday because of the holiday. It was crazy. People were furious. They took it out on me. But now everything's back to normal. Really, it seems the audience are creatures of habit. We like Friday feedback on Friday, so let's get to it. And this first question relates to something. It'll be a little bit of housekeeping, I think is the way I will say it. We out here in Smallbany posted to the subreddit David and future roundtable discussions. On the show today, David discussed the possibility of roundtable style discussions in the future. However, in a segment from about 2 years ago, David was brutally attacked by Alex Jones, who asserted that David was not a knight of the round table. David concurred. Will this lack of status jeopardize such roundtable discussions? Yeah, so listen, that's a very funny joke, but we've had now some of these panels, debates, roundtable discussions, call them what you will. A couple thoughts that we're having internally. Number one, 2 guests seem to work better than 3 in most cases, partially because of my inability to really control and guide the conversation as effectively when there are 3 guests. Maybe I need more practice, right? But it seems that 2 guests rather than 3 maybe is better for our show. Secondly, the full hour for most topics is probably too long for one of these panels or debates. So we are leaning more towards like 30, depending on the topic, 25 to 40-ish minutes, 30, 35, something like that. Those are kind of our early thoughts about the panels and debates. Interestingly, most people hate anything new that we do. How dare I try anything different? But actually got quite a bit of positive feedback in general about the format. Although, again, some folks said some of them are too long, some dragged, some of the guest choices maybe weren't the best, but we're working on it. The point here is to provide interesting and useful content to the audience in every way. And the panels maybe will allow us to do that. All right. Jan Arwedrichter on YouTube said, David, 8 months ago, there was an episode of your show called Cenk Uygur Confronts Me, Biden Can't Win, in which you vehemently pointed out it is Biden who's going to win in November. Are you in any way reconsidering your beliefs about his chances again? So as usual, the things I've said are being misstated or misunderstood. I never have said Biden is going to win in November. What I have pointed out and what I said in my discussion with Cenk is that when I look at historical factors and zoom out and think about the sort of election that this is, presidents tend to get reelected. And so at minimum, it's not obvious that Biden can't win. I did not say once during that conversation, Biden is going to win. In addition to that, I am regularly reconsidering my beliefs. And Joe Biden's debate performance has influenced my beliefs. The conversations we've been having on the show about the issue have influenced my beliefs. And that's what has led to the more balanced, I guess I would say, perspective that I have presented on this issue over the last couple of weeks. So there's really no gotcha there. Just please accurately state what I've said. Fire the Torpedo has a different perspective and wrote on the subreddit, liberals massively overreacting as usual, and writes, it comes down to numbers. Trump lost the last election and since then has been convicted of crimes. Remember the panic over the red wave? Never happened. Everyone said the red wave was coming and absolutely nothing happened. Trump didn't have enough votes to do it last time, and he has only lost voters since then. Maybe Biden didn't convince any new voters to come to him, but Trump has definitely lost plenty since the last time he lost the election. If Trump was literally any other candidate, I would be worried. But everyone already knows he's a lousy president. Save this post, and remember I told you so in November. Biden is far from the ideal candidate, but he's a billion times more worthy than Trump. This is one of the perspectives that I'm hearing. I'm hearing from some in my audience, Biden can't win, he's got to go now. And I'm hearing Biden's the only guy that can win. He's the president, Trump's terrible. That debate won't matter in the end. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. These are predictions. We won't know who's right until we see what happens November 5th. and we can influence what happens on November 5th. A user Quincy Q writes, Trump's VP shortlist is a snooze fest. Apparently, the 4 top contenders are Burgum, Vance, Rubio, and Scott. What a boring list of mediocre white right-wingers. Scott may be an exception to that, but he's still weak and uninspiring. Yeah, Marco Rubio is Hispanic also. I guess he's Hispanic white. I don't know. He goes on to say, I know many political strategists say VP picks don't mean much, but will a boring VP pick put Trump at a bigger disadvantage? Is he incapable of picking a woman due to his own ego? The woman thing I don't know about. There was one point where Trump was signaling he was going to definitely pick a woman. It's now not really seeming like that's likely. Trump wants a doormat. Trump wants a loyalist as defined by him, which is if I tell you on January whatever that you've got to go and do whatever, you need to do it without asking questions. Mike Pence asked questions. Not that it's a very high bar that we're setting, but Mike Pence was like, wait a second, I don't know about this. Trump wants a boring doormat who won't get any of the attention that he craves. And so it makes sense that he would go with boring people. Why would we outlined this in my video about VP choices? Why wouldn't Trump go for someone like a Marjorie Taylor Greene? She's a total sycophant. She's a total brown noser. She's a total loyalist. She will get too much attention. Trump wants the attention on himself. Silason wrote on the subreddit, I'm torn. On one hand, I don't think David should interview obviously mentally ill people like Royce White. On the other hand, the Republican Party seems to be determined to put these sorts of people on ballots, so it's obviously newsworthy. This is such a crazy thing, and I've spoken to about this with friends from other parts of the world where fewer of their political candidates are obviously mentally ill, okay? We have a reality in the United States where the Republican Party, especially for lower office, is disproportionately putting forward candidates that are very obviously mentally ill. Undiagnosed, certainly untreated. It's a reality, okay? I'm not diagnosing any specific person with any specific condition, but in general, a lot of these Republican candidates are very obviously mentally ill. What do we do as people who want to examine their beliefs? Do we say, well, they're so mentally ill, I'm not going to interview them? And then what? Their views aren't exposed. People don't hear about them. People don't hear about, hey, maybe I should consider donating to the opponent. So the way we've tended to handle this is if publicists come to us and they say, hey, we have someone here who's doing an interview circuit. Will you have them on? There have been mentally ill people that have ended up on the show that way. It's not really up to me to say this entire publicity tour shouldn't be happening. They're making statements. They're putting themselves forward, subjecting themselves to examination of those beliefs. I will speak to them and I will try to use whatever assessment I make of their mental health to decide how to handle the interview. When it comes to nominated candidates that are on ballots, it's very hard to argue that just because they're mentally ill, they shouldn't be interviewed, because these people are on ballots. Royce White is the Republican nominee. He's backed by the Republican Party in Minnesota. So I'm with you. There is something delicate here. There is so much mental illness in these candidates that the modern Republican Party puts forward. But to say they all get a pass because they're mentally ill, well, next thing you know, they'll get a pass into office. And that is a real problem. Eric the Red commented on YouTube, I held my nose and voted Biden in 2020. I will not in 2024. The Democrats did the same thing with Clinton. Ego and assumption Democrats voters will just go along. Well, I would never tell anyone, just go with whoever is the Democratic nominee. This has never been a vote blue no matter who show, period. The case I would make is that if it's Biden versus Trump, Trump's presidency was a disaster, and what he's promising for the next one would be a disaster. Whereas on the other hand, demented or not, Joe Biden's presidency has included one of the best economies we've had in 50 years, at least. Lowest sustained unemployment, all-time high stock market record after record after record after record. Historic record of student loan debt forgiveness, negotiating drug prices with Big Pharma, expanding Obamacare, asking for cannabis to be descheduled. I could give you the list. The point is, if he's demented, he's doing a fine job, and he could be demented 4 more years and do a fine job. So the point is, you evaluate the options. If Newsom becomes the nominee, okay, you don't like everything he's done in California, the alternative is Trump. I'd vote Newsom there. Give me options, and I will choose the best or least bad option every single time. Nerd Hater has a very different view. This is going to be controversial, I believe. Nerd Hater writes, to everybody who comments under David Pakman's videos, this was your fault. You all paraded around Biden and tried to vote blue no matter who, people who have had to deal with that sentiment for 8 years now. You thought anyone would be better than Trump and didn't learn from your mistakes in 2016 with Hillary. Now the American people are tired and feel lied to. Biden has now finally lost the election. You could have picked anyone else to beat Trump. You didn't. This was your fault. I don't believe that that case can be supported empirically with data. I'm just not seeing that claim in the data. So I leave it to those in my audience to decide whether they see anything there that resonates with them. And then let's go finally to Angel Mendes, who says progressives were mocked for calling this. They didn't want to do a proper primary with Marianne Jenkins Phillips. People got what they wanted, even though 70% of the country wanted other candidates to challenge Biden, which there were, like I said. If they don't change Biden, don't go blue, go green. Jill Stein 2024. Deranged, okay? Deranged in every way. Jill Stein would be a disastrous president. I don't want to hear a word about Jill Stein. Total and complete disaster. With regard to a proper primary, I don't know if people get this. I don't know if the Marianne Jenkins Dean Phillips supporters understand this. If Biden had said, I'm not running, and there were a real primary, okay, which, by the way, every party, when they have an incumbent, they don't have a real primary. There is no way Marianne, Jenk, or Dean Phillips win that real primary if any serious candidate runs. I'm sorry. Just look at the polling. If Biden says I'm bowing out, there's a real primary, and Kamala Harris runs, Kamala Harris wins the nomination. She might get crushed in November in that scenario. But in a real primary where Harris says, I'd like to be the nominee, she wins. We have the polling. If Gavin Newsom were to run in a primary against Harris, I think Newsom or Harris win. It wouldn't have been Marianne. It wouldn't have been Jenk. It wouldn't have been Dean Phillips. I'm sorry, guys. Don't kill the messenger. If Harris said in that scenario, I'm not running, but Newsom says I'm running, you think Marianne, Jenk, or Dean Phillips defeat Gavin Newsom? I don't think so. So the point here is this assumption that in a real primary, nobody else would run, and the winner would be Marianne Williamson, Cenk Uygur, or Dean Phillips, and then they go on to defeat Donald Trump. I see zero basis in fact for that. If you can justify that claim empirically, please get me that data. I want to see it. All right, you can email info@davidpakman.com if you have anything you'd like included in the Friday feedback segment. Remember to get the free Project 2025 white paper at davidpakman.com/Project 2025. We have a great bonus show coming up for you next week, RNC Live. I hope you will join me. Otherwise, I'll sit in the room with the microphone and have nobody to talk to. But RNC coverage live next week. I hope you'll be with me.